Hi, this is Shawn Welker, founder of Visual Eyes Access, and you're listening to White Canes Connect.
Hey there, PA Federationists. Welcome to another episode of White Canes Connect, presented by the National Federation of the Blind of Pennsylvania. My name is David Goldstein. I am the first vice president of the affiliate. Joining me today is a newcomer. She is a board member of the affiliate. Michelle McManus, how are you today?
I am good. I'm happy to be here.
And what do we have on tap?
Well, we have Shawn Welker. He's from Visualize Access, and it's visual and then EYES Access. And it is a visual interpreting company. And he is basically on his own because of circumstances that I'm sure we'll probably discuss later, that have led him to be so involved in this field of business.
And one of the things that I found interesting that he actually told us after we finished recording is the fact that not only can he has been trained in doing visual interpretation, but he also has accessibility and mobility training. So it kind of gives him a leg up on a lot of the other folks who do this sort of thing. Certainly the program that has volunteers, they're just helping somebody out, maybe because they want to volunteer and feel good about themselves. But the fact that Shawn has these skills on top of the visual interpreting skills makes it something that's a little more than some of the other places.
That's right, and it's helpful because you talk to people and you say, well, help me if you're on the computer or something, and you have voiceover or JAWS on, and you say, help me find this or help me do this. They don't know how to use the technology. So sometimes the way your cursor is not in the same place as, where you're hearing the text. And, he knows how to interpret that and how to work with it. So I think this will be a good interview.
Let's get to the interview. Shawn, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, David. Really good to be here. Appreciate the invite.
It's glad to have you here. We kind of met through, uh, I guess you would call it an experiment. And it was through a group at Penn State. And what they wanted to do was have two visual interpreters with one person at the same time to see how it would work and to see if it was a good fit to do some projects. So I guess I should have noted, Shawn is a visual interpreter, and I'll let him explain more about that in a second. But we met because of this experiment and just kind of have kept in touch and worked together on some projects. So, can you tell us a little bit about maybe a visual interpreting and how you got into it, and just kind of give people a bit of an intro.
Yeah, that's funny that you brought that up because I had kind of forgotten about that. That was probably the first time that I was brought into the world of academia as far as like my involvement within the blindness community. You know, having that graduate program where they were really trying to make the justification that having more than one visual interpreter on at any given point in order to provide a higher quality experience was a really interesting take. And you were one of the folks that participated as well. I remember kind of right from the get-go, right from them first reaching out to me, kind of saying, hey, I just need to let you know I don't think it's a really good idea based on my experience, based on how I have provided visual interpreting for folks. I think it would create confusion. I think it would create just really strange situations where you have to be really in sync with the person that you're working with, and then to bring a third party, a third wheel on, it almost felt as though it was going to be more of a distraction. And I think after running a few scenarios and having some feedback with other folks that were participating, both sighted visual interpreters and also the blind users, I think I kind of heard that coming out of that. But the fact that there's still this interest in what can be done to make visual interpreting an even more high quality experience for folks, like what are the limitations? The sky's the limit. What can we do, right? And ultimately, what they were working on was the possibility of even including augmented reality with a live visual interpreter. And I'm still fascinated at how that may possibly play out. I don't know if anything more has been done along those lines, but the fact that schools are still looking at ways that we can kind of research not just best practices, but even going beyond and being very progressive and creative about how we utilize both the higher technology with like AI and augmented reality, along with the more simple technology of a human being, just providing their eyesight. Um, and actually, you don't even know about this, but I'm currently working with another school. I don't recall if we have a non-disclosure, so I'm not going to share what school it is. But one of the things that they're currently working on is comparing how AI provides descriptions versus real, human descriptions. So I was able to actually provide them with 600 600 captions for different images recently, and they're just getting started, so I don't know what the ultimate end goal of that is going to be, what the results will be. But again, just the whole concept of finding that to be incredibly fascinating. So yeah, you mentioned I'm a visual interpreter. What does that mean, right? So visual interpreting as kind of an industry or as a field has really kind of existed in the public domain for only about 10 years. And folks are probably familiar with the two big players out in the field, which would be Aira, paid subscription service, and then also Be My Eyes, which, they leverage the power of volunteers. Over 8.5 million volunteers worldwide. They're represented on every continent other than Antarctica. I think that they still need to get there someday. I think that would be amazing. Um, but one of the things that I have heard from folks, because I used to be an IRA agent, I was with them back in 2018 and 2019. Like that's where I got my start, right? One of the things that I've heard from folks is that it's getting pricey. It's getting to the point where people can no longer afford it. It was already kind of a bit of a luxury for many. We know that there is a very high rate of unemployment within the blindness community. We know that a lot of folks are in fixed incomes. And so when I was with the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired, I started up with them shortly after I left IRA. I actually was with another startup in between, but then the pandemic as the pandemic ended up having other plans for me. And I'm kind of glad it did because I found my way to the Massachusetts Association for the Blind and Visually Impaired under Sassy Outwater Wright. And while I was there, I was able to learn more about access technology, which I didn't really learn much about when I was at IRA. I was aware of things like screen readers and magnifiers, but I really didn't get any time, directly spent with them. I also learned more about just accessibility in general, right? We talk about being able to provide access to information, and sometimes that information in that environment is not just the physical environment, it's somebody's digital environment as well. And having the understanding that if the world was built, and this includes digital spaces, right? If the world was built accessibly from the get-go and it was built in an inclusive manner of all abilities, we wouldn't have the need for things like visual interpreting. I love what I do. I love being able to connect with my clients and provide them access to information. When I train folks, whether it be folks that were volunteers when I was with the Massachusetts Association running a specialized help program for Be My Eyes, I would always ask folks who makes decisions for blind people. And you can kind of tell how these volunteers would, how well they would do based on their response and how quickly their brains came to the conclusion of, oh wait, this is an obvious one. Blind people make decisions for blind people. And I've said this many times with folks that either that I work with, as far as like colleagues, other organizations that maybe I've partnered with. I say that we are just a resource, another tool in the accessibility toolkit. We have the ability to provide access to information. It has to be done in a way that is meaningful and relevant to that person. If you call me up, Michelle, and you say, "Hey, something rolled off my desk, and I think it fell on the floor," and I tell you, "Oh yeah, I see it. It's over there." Well, that doesn't do you any good, right? It's not meaningful to you. It's not significant. If I say, yeah, I think I see maybe a pen cap and it looks like it's in front of your right foot, slightly to the right, probably about an arm's length away. Well, now I've identified the object, at least potentially that object, and I've given you a way that you can actually find it yourself. All I did is provide you access to information. And that's something that is incredibly important to me on how I handle being a visual interpreter. One of the conversations that I had recently with somebody was, when are we going to have kind of these standardized, like more of a standardization around visual interpreting? And I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. I really don't. And then it was interesting because I had a conversation with somebody else about that same topic. And they said, but do we really want to have it be standardized? I mean, to some extent, as long as you're just there to provide information, isn't that enough of a standardization? And I don't know what the right answer is there.
That's interesting that you mentioned about having standards. Um, I don't know if that would work with visual interpreting, at least the way I think about it, because every situation's different.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be tricky. The big thing that I think that is really important to me, right, is that we kind of have to dismantle anything that resembles an ableist approach, right? It's not about me, the interpreter. It's about how the person who is asking for the assistance is able to receive that information. And when I work with folks to either train them as volunteers or train them as folks that are going to work for me, which I'm actually in the process of doing right now, I can talk just a little bit about that. We do definitely have a non-disclosure agreement about that one, but I'll share a little bit about that. The big thing for me is always making sure that people understand that we need to rely heavily on the objective, right? What is seen, what is observed, and kind of straight away from infusing any of our opinions, any of our own experiences. It's not about that, right? It's about what is observable and then communicated back out to the person so that they can understand their environment and then do what I said before, make a decision for themselves. That decision could be as simple as, oh, now I know what's on the menu and I'm going to order the gazpacho. To, oh, now I understand, what the traffic controls are, how many lanes I have to cross, when the signal changes, and I'm going to use my orientation and mobility skills in addition to this information to know when it's safe to cross an intersection. So it's more art than science, and it's one of the things that I just absolutely love being in the space, and not only about the work that I do, but this, Michelle. I've been to a number of different events, both as an exhibitor and then also just as an attendee, somebody who's just showing up because these are the folks that I spend most of my day with, right? And we've had the pleasure of sharing meals and maybe a soda or two at these events. And it's very important for me, to be there and kind of hear the stories coming from folks that ultimately are clients, yes, but that I've found that over the years I've been able to develop some really strong friendships with. One person recently told me, they said, "Hey, whether you like it or not, you're an honorary blind guy." And I take that as an absolute badge of honor. I really do. Like, that's just one of the coolest things that anyone has ever said to me. I love being in the space. I love doing what I'm doing. We're taking a little bit different approach at Visual Eyes Access, and I think it's going well so far. Hopefully, more people will find us.
I think the term you're looking for is blind at heart is what everybody always is what everybody always uses. So why don't you Why don't you explain more about your business?
Last year, about the same time, actually, I was finishing up my fourth year with MAPV. And unfortunately, we ran into a significant funding shortage. Um, my position and the program that I had been coordinating, that specialized help program of Be My Eyes, we had gotten ourselves 3.5 years out of it, out of the 4 years that I was with MAPV. And it was an amazing program. And I knew it was going to impact a lot of folks who were using us on a regular basis. We had gotten to the point where we were handling 100 calls a week. We had a team of 50 volunteers covering 80 hours a week on demand, all completely free of charge to the users. And, I went to those national conventions last summer with a real heavy heart. I knew that it was going to be a real tough decision to make, but I wanted to involve the people that, I'd been spending a lot of time with, and that was the folks that, were using our service. And I asked folks, including Michelle, what do you think I should do? This is a really tough decision. And it's not just about me, it's about the folks that have been using this service. What do you think that we can do as a community, as a group of folks that, share this connection? And to a T, folks said, "Hey, look, I love your volunteer team, but if I have to pay for a service, I would love to have you. I would love to have you as my visual interpreter." And I was like, "Whoa, that I never really thought about that, okay." And so we started kind of thinking about how that would look, and started on the paperwork, got all the paperwork out of the way, got the insurance up and going. And as of August 1st of last year, I've been running mostly by myself, visual eyes access. And we do two main things. The biggest one is a low cost visual interpreter service. Typically, my service starts at $1 per minute, and it goes down if you're on a subscription plan. If you have a larger pool of minutes, or if you're using, if you're receiving your invoice only on a quarterly or annual basis, you can save money that way as well. Um, and we're also doing web accessibility and digital accessibility consulting. So there's definitely some organizations out there that we're in the process of starting to look at their websites, potentially getting contracts to do some rebuilds. And then one of the things that I was going to share that I had kind of alluded to earlier, we're looking at partnering with another accessibility organization to run a pilot program, providing kind of a concierge disability service for folks who are wayfinding and navigating in a downtown setting. Now, I don't think I can say what city, and I don't think I can say the other partner here, but we're looking at starting that up here in the next few months, and running through to the middle of December. And so hopefully this is something that really takes off, that they're, see the value of what it is that we do, what we can provide for these communities. And hopefully we can expand and, allow our, individual service to continue for our clients, potentially at a even lower cost. If we're able to land some of these contracts, hopefully that will allow us to, decrease costs to the individual users even more.
So right now, are you the only interpreter, the visual interpreter, or do you have other folks on staff?
The only person I have on my staff currently, I have one person who provides just 5 hours a week, and she handles maintaining the website. As I have told her, it is not something that brings me joy, so I have Marie Kondoed it, and so she handles it. That, and she's a WordPress whiz, and I am not. So it's a good fit for us. But with this partnership that I was approached about, we've actually just recently started recruiting, and we're going back to the pool that served us best when I was at MABI, and that's the students over there at the New England College of Optometry. They provided us a very regular flow of volunteers when I was there, at least 5, 10 new ones each semester. And actually, some of the old volunteers recently reconnected with me and said, "Hey, look, when is your business really going to take off? Is there ways that we can get involved? We want to continue, providing this visual interpreter service. We loved doing what we did, and how can we get involved again?" And it just happened to fall right at the right time. So I've already got a pool of about 20 students over there that I'm looking at to get trained, make sure that we can fulfill the requirements of staffing this, this pilot project, this 5, 6 month pilot project. And hopefully we'll see that open up more opportunities for possibly like some more commercial contracts.
Can we guess that because they're coming from New England, that might be the city that it's near, or that has nothing to do with it?
I'm not gonna say anything. You can take any guesses you want, sir.
It's my favorite thing.
That is one of the great things though about providing a service remotely, right? I mean, it can be anybody anywhere receiving the service and anybody anywhere providing the service as well. So it
You're
really works
correct.
well
Yeah.
for me. The only thing that I run into problems with is recently I was looking at some HR policies. I was like, oh, California, you wicked little state. They do not play nicely. So we're gonna have to figure out what to do there. 'Cause I've actually got a pool of blind folks out in California who have said that they want to start providing training for folks once we get to that point. Well, we're getting close to that point, but we're going to have to do some finagling to make sure that all those folks out there we're able to employ them properly. Because here's the thing, it's you got to do things right by all the people that are involved. That means the folks that are using our service. That means the folks that are providing the service, my workers. Even though they're 1099, they're still folks that, they're helping me put food on my table. They're helping to make sure that the people that we said that we're going to provide a high quality experience to, that we do that. I absolutely want to make sure that those folks are taken care of. And then also we have to make sure that we're employing, folks who are disabled in those roles of being a disabled person to provide real life experience during these practice scenarios before these folks are ready to go live. I mean, I can do everything I can in my own city here with my collapsible white cane and sunglasses, but it's not going to be the same as working with somebody who has an actual disability, somebody who's actually blind and is out there navigating public spaces and using public transit, and the difference between a guide dog user and a cane traveler. There's very distinct differences, and I can't emulate that. I have to make sure that we're using the right folks so that the training is high quality for the folks that are going to be handling these calls. Absolutely critical.
Yeah, it is. So can you tell us a little bit about like which platforms people can currently use and currently reach you on? What have you found works best?
So
Um,
one of the exciting things, and I keep talking about things that are down the road, right? It's just because we've gotten ourselves there. I've been up and running since last August, and we're finally getting to the point where there's some really cool things coming down the pipeline, and I don't have to kind of share the same story that everybody's already heard on every other podcast I've been on. Um, we're actually working with the same organization that I'm partnering with for this project in this major city. They have an app, and it's very possible that they're going to be able to tailor it so that I will have access to it, and my clients will be able to use that app as a standalone. In the meantime, folks have been using WhatsApp. WhatsApp is encrypted on both ends. It's basically, I haven't met too many blind folks that have not used WhatsApp. It's, pretty good as far as accessibility goes. And the big selling point for me and what made it a no-brainer was the fact that so many people are now using those Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. WhatsApp is already there. Literally, you connect your call and you double tap on that button on the right arm of the glasses, and it enables that video feed. And now all of a sudden, your hands free. And I remember back when, at Aira, and we had those Horizon kits, and how just everybody initially loved them, and then 2 weeks later, everybody hated them because the micro USB cable kept just connecting, or it would wiggle and break, or there were so many things that just didn't work very well, and we're not seeing that with the Ray-Bans. People like them because they're stylish. It doesn't look like they're wearing a piece of access technology. And I've seen cases where people have been out and about and using my service, and people still will come up to them and ask them if they want assistance. And I can literally tell the person I'm assisting, hey, tell this lady that's approaching you in the blue shirt that you don't need the and I had that situation today. I was navigating somebody through a medical center in LA, and I'm like, about 11 o'clock, you got someone coming at you pretty hot. I bet they're probably going to ask if you want some help. And the person loved it. He's like, yep. As soon as he heard them get closer, he was a guide dog user. He's like, as soon as they got close enough that he could sense them, he's like, I don't need any assistance. Thank you. So, and hands free, right? He had his guide dog, so he's got the harness with one hand. He had some medical paperwork in the other hand. For him to hold a phone, even if he had like a lanyard or something like that, it bounces. It's just not as good, a steady and consistent quality of an experience. And then as we were navigating down hallways, and I needed to start looking for the placards for the rooms, it made it really easy for the person to just simply continue navigating in a forward direction, but then turn their head slightly. So I can see, what's approaching on the left hand side or the right hand side. It just it's been a game changer, not just for the folks out there, the end users that are using it, but honestly for me too, as a visual interpreter. It just makes it so much simpler knowing that the person that I'm assisting is hands free. They oftentimes you can just kind of sense they've got that just a little bit more confident as far as their ability to navigate successfully, not having to hold that phone. And I've done training with folks. I know how you get about a half hour into a walk and your arm starts aching, right? Because it's hard to hold that phone steady. I have my folks that I train. I tell them to do that. I say, hey, go point at something, spin around in a circle a couple times, and try to point at it again. Tell me how easy it is. Now hold your phone out in front of you for a minute. Tell me if your arms start certain. Oh, try doing that for an hour while we're navigating, 7 intersection crossings. And so, we want to know what it is that the end user is experiencing, and the fact that these make it so much easier to use, Ray-Ban Meta Smart glasses, and then WhatsApp, again, a secure service that most folks are already familiar with. It's been a great experience being able to use those two things with folks.
Yeah, the hands free is so huge because, like you say, when you have a cane and something else on you to get your phone out, and that's basically how I navigate things. I'll take my phone out and kind of wave it around and hear what's using Seeing AI, hear what signs are around if I'm looking for a building or a business or what it might be, and then you put your phone back in your pocket and then you continue on because you can't hold a couple of things plus your cane and
Yep.
your phone. So it's
Yeah.
yeah, the meta
It's
band.
just, it's just not a fluid experience, right? I don't know too many people who like to get from point A to point B by having point A1 where they stop and turn and look at something, snap a photo, get to point A2 and stop and do the same thing. It just it makes things, and not only that, but like it draws attention to yourself. What's that guy doing, right? Nobody wants to be that guy.
Right. You see, what's that blind man taking all these pictures for?
Right, right. Blind people don't take pictures, do they? It's always funny hearing the stories when I go to these events and I share a meal or just a drink or conversation with folks, and some some of the stories that they share with me, just it's an interesting world to be a participant of. And I love being here. I love my role. I love that there's folks out there in this space who have said, hey, you're welcome here. I just hope that we're able to do two things. That's all I really want to do as far as my visual interpreter service. Number one, I want to provide as top-notch, high-quality experience for folks as possible. I don't know why you would want to do it any other way than that, and that means background checking everybody. That means having comprehensive training. That means making sure that if there's folks that are, wanting to handle calls and they really shouldn't be, that they're not handling calls. And then also it needs to be as free as possible, right? I mean, we know that there's such a high level of unemployment and fixed incomes within the blindness space. Um, it has become something that, in my opinion, many it's a necessity, but it's turned into a luxury just because they can't afford it. So one of the other things that I've started doing, we talked with our guide dog users. We've got a lot of guide dog users, and I asked maybe a dozen of them, hey, do you have someone that you use like a store or whatever that you're real loyal to as far as your supplies for your dog? And to a T, none of them said they're not really, whatever, whoever has the best sales or whatever. Or maybe they have a particular item that their dog likes, so they have to go to, that particular retailer. And I said, what if I started stocking stuff in a store and we had it tied to our website? And not only that, it's not just going to be supplies for your dog, but what if I also told you that 10% of your purchase will give it back to you in the form of minutes. Because if you're gonna buy stuff that you already would anyways, getting that extra little reward of hey, I spent $100 on my dog supplies this month, but I got 10 minutes back on my account. That's kind of cool. But you're probably not going to get a ton of minutes doing that, right? But if you ask your friends and your family and your neighbors and your coworkers and all these other folks that have dogs, they don't have to be a guide dog, it just has to be a dog. They can start buying their supplies there, and they can then donate those minutes to whomever they choose. If they're not going to use them, they can say, "Yeah, I know Michelle McManus, and why don't you give my minutes that I earned for my purchases to her?" Perfect. We'll update Michelle the next time a purchase comes in, and that let her know what her account is at. The other thing that I do with folks is if you earn minutes through these freebie plans, or if you purchase minutes, those stay on your account until you use them. I've never understood the concept of why people would at the end of their billing cycle have to either be real frugal and save just in case they needed minutes, or get to the end of their billing cycle and be in this mad scramble of I'm going to spend 2 hours sorting mail today because I have all these minutes I need to burn down. So if you purchase a plan, if you earn minutes, they're just going to stay on your account until you use them. It's just that simple. I don't feel the need to overcomplicate things. Maybe someday when I'm big enough, I'll have to, but for the time being, that's one of the really cool things about being a small business owner is I have the ability to kind of make these determinations. And right now, it's not. Yeah, I'm not breaking the bank, but that's not why I'm here. That's not what this is all about. We're slowly building something that we think that we can be proud of, and something that we think is going to be of good value to the community that we provide this service to.
So
Those are the two things that I want to do.
how do you scale the business? Because it seems like the other businesses that you mentioned, whether it's Aira or Be My
Yeah.
Eyes, and let's not get into the AI bit of it, but I know I have some friends that use both of those services, and there are times that they will call more so Aira than Be My Eyes and not get anyone.
Yep.
The call will go unanswered. How do you
Yeah.
avoid that, but also make money
So
because
I got to be honest. That's probably like the one thing that people are still kind of hung up on. Folks that haven't made the jump and tried my 30-minute trial. I offer a 30-minute trial for $20. Come kick the tires if you like it. Stick around. If you don't, oh well, I must have messed up somehow. But the right now, my folks that use my service, they know that because it's just me, just one person, that they schedule those tasks out ahead of time. And initially, I kind of thought it was going to be real challenging for folks. Like they just weren't going to like it. But I've gotten to the point that people are so familiar with doing it that way that it works really, really well. Um, you know, it goes onto my Calendly. It allows them to see what time slots I have available and what aren't. I make sure that it's using an accessible platform. The other thing too is within WhatsApp, there's obviously that chat feature. Well, I don't use WhatsApp for my personal life, so I use that for business communications. And if somebody wants to WhatsApp me and say, "Hey, I need help right now. Are you available?" 9 times out of 10, it's going to be, "Yep, give me 2 minutes. I'm going to hop right on." And while I'm getting myself ready, why don't you text me back and let me know what you need help with, so that when we do connect, I'm ready to go. And it works really, really well. My available hours during the week for myself are 9 to 5 Eastern time. But as Michelle knows, if you need something in the evenings, if you need something on the weekends, all I ask is that you give me a little bit of heads up, a little bit of notice, so I can carve out that time on my calendar. I'm an old, boring guy, so I don't really do anything. I don't have any hot dates on a Tuesday evening or anything. And it works well. It works really, really well. And so the question was about scaling up, right? So we're going to get to that point probably sooner than later, where we're going to have enough requests that are coming in that I'm going to start getting double booked. I'm going to start having to turn away some, or folks are going to say, "Hey, you don't ever have any times available." So this pilot project that we're running is actually going to be a feeder for folks who will then be able to start handling some of these requests that I know that I can offload to them. I'm not going to be giving them the big heavy duty ones because I'm the person that needs to handle those because I want to make sure you have the best experience. If you're going to throw me the knuckle curveball, I want to make sure you got something that knows how to hit it. If you're just throwing a fastball down the middle, I'll let some of those other folks who are participating in this pilot and learning every call that they take. Maybe we find a way to get them involved. I actually have one of my old volunteers who is going to be assisting. I have a gentleman who does a navigation twice a week. He goes into a YMCA, does his physical therapy or exercising or whatever, and then an hour later he leaves the YMCA. And it's usually like clockwork, 8, 9 minutes each time. And it just kind of interrupts the flow of my day. But we're going to get him assigned to one of the folks who has visual interpreting experience, who was a volunteer under me, is going to get additional training. And has been made aware of this, and he is open to it, primarily because he knows that I'm going to offer him some free minutes for it, because I want him to, help, provide some experience for this person. But it's kind of a win-win situation, and we're going to keep finding creative ways to make sure that people get that real lived experience. And again, I've got folks out there in the community who have said, "Hey, I wanna start training your folks. I know that you're gonna do great at this, and I want to do my part to help make sure that you're getting the absolute best out of these folks, these new folks that are coming on board."
Let's take a step back real fast on
Sure.
the dog food and things like that. Is that right
Yeah.
there on your site? Right on the
It is. It's called the Provisions Shop, and
Okay.
there's a link. There's a link to it. I think it's Provision Shop. There's also a navigation link from the website. Visual Eyes. Eyes is EYES. VisualEyesAccess.com.
Okay, and I'll put that in the show notes. So, and is it only dog stuff at this point because nobody has a
Yeah,
cat
I
as a
mean,
guide?
if you have a seeing eye cat, I'm happy to put stuff in there, but I think that you probably have bigger problems if you have a seeing eye cat. Um, I've heard though that in like some of the South American countries they use llamas, so that's kind of cool. But I don't plan on
Huh.
stocking any llama supply.
Okay.
Currently, it is just stuff for dogs, and it's primarily because like it's available to a lot of different people. Same thing would be for cats, of course. And honestly, we plan on getting to that point, but we just had to have enough so that we had something out there for people to be able to access, something for people to be able to start purchasing. It's mostly treats, chew toys, like raw, no, not rawhide because I think rawhide is out these days, right? But like those type of toys. Um, we do have like rain parkas and boots. We're gonna start stocking. We've got dog beds, dishes, um, crates. The other thing too is if you have something that you don't see in our store and you're like, I wonder if he could get this for us. We've got lists of like literally hundreds of suppliers that we have access to. And so all you have to do is reach out. There's a contact form on the website, or I'm sure you'll have my direct contact information available to folks. Anybody can reach out to me. I will do everything I can to make sure that if you got a big bulk order or if you got a special order, that we'll be able to source it for you, get it to you for less than retail. So that it's a win-win situation. We get a little bit, profit that goes back into business. We'll give you some visual interpreter minutes on top of that, and make sure you get your supplies, hopefully under retail.
That's a lot. You have a lot going on these days.
I'm trying to cobble together a small business, Michelle.
I know, but wow.
I just want to get to the point where I can start putting name brand ramen noodle on the table, right? We're still in the multi-pack stage of buying them 20 packs at a time. No, but one of the other things that we're going to be doing, we're planning on being at both of the national conventions again this year, though, as exhibitors, as vendors. So definitely encouraging folks to come and give us a chat. The other thing that we're going to have is we're going to have some branded logo items on our store, like shirts. I don't know if we're doing hats, but like just like apparel, like sweatshirts, whatever. And one of the things that I'm planning on doing, and I haven't figured out exactly how I want this to work, but if we catch somebody in the wild down at one of these events and they're wearing our logo, we're gonna give them something. I don't know what that's gonna be, but we're gonna give them something.
So tell everybody about your logo, if since you just brought that up, because
So
it's an interesting idea.
yeah, so you're talking about the main logo that I have.
Yes.
So I'm gonna actually have to pull it up and look at it because if I don't, the way my brain works, I'm gonna forget. So this is something that the folks that built my site, it's a two-person team called Fangirl Foundry. So a little shout out for them, because I am not somebody who builds websites. Um, so what they did is they walked me through, well, what's important to you, and we decided that we wanted to have a camp theme because camp is a magical place, and I want everyone to have kind of a magical experience, whether it be coming to the realization of how good web accessibility is beneficial for their business or their nonprofit to, man, this guy is top notch as a visual interpreter. And it's amazing. So I want to kind of have that feeling throughout all of the services that I provide. And so we also have on our site, we've got this little cartoon Sasquatch. He's wearing his little red backpack and he's got glasses on because he can't see very well. And he's kind of looking off into the distance. But the Sasquatch for us represents this whole idea of like the unknown, right? It's scary. But the thing is, if you learn more about visual interpreting, if you learn more about accessibility, web accessibility in particular, it turns from something that's unknown and scary into something that is warm and friendly and welcoming. And that's absolutely what we want to do with our web accessibility consulting, also with how we approach, visual interpreting. Since it's just me for right now, I have the ability to have some amazing relationships with the people that are my clients. And, they put me through the ringer sometimes. They really do. And I absolutely love being able to deliver for them. So getting back to the actual logo itself. So it is a stylized visual eyes in mostly kind of like a chocolate brown text. But underneath visual eyes is the word access. And the V and the A are stacked on top of each other to look almost like a teepee. So we're talking about like kind of like a tent or, being out and, building your own shelter. There's a kind of like a stick figure pine tree to the left of that. And then above it, there's a wavy blue line symbolizing water. And it's kind of this whole camp theme that my web design team came up with. And I love it because it's a place. Again, like I said, camp is a magical place. It always has been for me. I used to be a camp director. I'm somebody who absolutely, summertime was about camp, and being able to take that experience of kind of just guiding people, right? I mean, from the time of being like a counselor in training to a counselor to all the way up to being a director and being able to share experiences. And I remember sometimes kids would be coming to camp for the first time. And those were the ones that I absolutely loved spending time, right? Because I had the ability of taking something that was completely scary and unknown and again transforming it into something that turned into a magical experience for them. And I love taking that idea and applying it, obviously to my website, but also to, how I provide services to folks, whether it be through visual interpreting or through web accessibility consulting.
What do you think the most challenging interpretation that you've done with somebody being out and about? What has been the most difficult or challenging to get somebody through?
So I'm going to tell you, not the most challenging, but I'm going to tell you the one that was one of the most memorable ones. How about that? Because they all kind of have their own varying degrees, right? But the one that I that always sticks out in my mind whenever I'm asked about, hey, what's an interesting call? I remember, I answered the call, and it's clearly when the video engages, it's clearly somebody sitting in the driver's seat, and you see the keys in the ignition, and their hand is on the gear shifter, and they say, "Hey, buddy, help me put this thing in gear." And you can see like they're in a parking ramp, and I'm like, I can't do that. No. And the person got progressively more irritated with me, and they're like, "I'm paying for this service. You need to help me." And fell back on the whole, we're not allowed to assist anybody operating mechanical, equipment. And eventually, the guy finally relented, and he just started laughing. He's like, "My friends are in the mall, and I just wanted to go rest out in the car, so I figured I'd try and give someone a scare today, and it just happened to be you. So thanks, buddy. I'm gonna take a break now while I go change my pants."
Along those lines, do you have some sort of licensing agreement or agreement, I guess it is, not maybe a licensing agreement, on what you can help folks with and what you can? I know that a lot of them there's a lag time, so you can't do a mechanical thing, or somebody wants to get up on a Segway and do a tour around a specific city. So do you have some sort of agreement with folks of what you'll provide and not?
Yeah, not only is there probably an agreement, but there's also what my insurance will allow me to provide assistance with. So all of that is actually located, because I can't rattle that off the top of my head, but all of that is located under the, I believe, the privacy policies and disclaimers on the website, which are located in the footer. Um, One of the things that I do mention with folks is that I do things somewhat differently than the two others that are out there, right? Be My Eyes has their way of handling things. Aira has their way of handling things. And what I like to do is I like to ask folks, what would you prefer? One of the biggest changes or differences that people have requested, and which is why I've responded this way, is that people have mentioned that when they're in the middle of an intersection crossing, if they are, not maintaining that direct path, staying in the crosswalk, potentially drifting, that they would like to have really quick, corrections. And so whenever I start navigating somebody, that's one of the first things I'm going to ask them, right? Hey, how do you feel about intersection crossings? Before we get to one, we need to have an understanding of both of what your preference is and also what I need to anticipate as far as what I can do. And each person is kind of limited based off of their abilities, right? And I have somebody right now actually who is navigating and spending their time learning how to navigate successfully a 7 lane, no, 8 lane intersection crossing. And it is it is challenging. So David, when you asked about, what's one of the most challenging calls, this is very challenging. And part of the reason why is because there are times where the camera feed for me is not oriented, but it's not about me. It's because I know that this person is orienting themselves. But also one of the things that we found is that the traffic patterns go in such a rapid cycle that by the time they've found where the call button is for the pedestrian crossing, they've worked their way back over to where those truncated domes are, and they've then, turn their body again so that they're able to be oriented correctly. And they don't use me for that, right? They've told me very specifically, this is not what I need your assistance for. I need to find these things on my own. I need to find the call button. I need to go from the call button 5 feet over, find where those truncated domes are, listen to the flow of traffic so that I can orient myself correctly. I will not use you for that. You're obviously going to be there with me. We're not going to disconnect, but I don't need your assistance for that. We have that understanding. Once they decide that they're lined up, I've got view of that crossing signal, and we've memorized the traffic patterns. And so we know that once the west to east traffic has stopped and it's just the east to west, it's because they've got that left turn going on, and the pedestrian is going to be up next. The person that is going to be traveling across this intersection is up next. So we kind of prepare and say, okay, the east-west traffic is going now. It's going to be your turn up in about 10 seconds. Ready yourself. They steady themselves, so I have a good, clear view of that crossing signal. And then once it's changed, it's go time, because we found that once that signal changes, literally within less than 2 seconds, we timed it out. It's less than 2 seconds before it starts blinking red. So this person knows, and we've trust this a number of times at this point, because they're going to continue to do this, to use their their minutes to get themselves comfortable with this intersection crossing, because eventually they want to do it on their own. And I said, that's great. I want to be part of helping you get there. It's about, learning your environment so that eventually you don't even need the assistance, right? Um, and we we have found that because it's such a wide intersection, it does not take much for them to start to drift a bit in either direction. So being able to have that approval from them, the user, saying, yes, please give me that correction. I do not want to go into the intersection. I do not want to end up halfway up the road because I got myself turned once I crossed the median. And it's good. You can tell it provides them that sense of security that if it was completely silent the entire way across, I mean that's a long way to travel. I think that they probably wouldn't attempt this on their own. So is it different? Yeah, but and maybe it's not for everybody. And I tell people this all the time when they're kind of first hearing about me. I don't need to be everybody's first choice. People have their preferences. I just want people to know that I'm here. And if at some point you decide, hey, you know what, this guy sounds like actually good quality, good deal. Let's check him out. I've got a 30-minute trial that you can do for $20. You don't have to worry about, using it within 30 days or anything like that. Those minutes will stay in your account as long as you want. And you can break it up into multiple sessions, or you can do it all at once. And then after that, if you want to get onto a subscription plan, I'm not a salesperson, but what I'll do is we'll talk it through together to try and figure out what makes the most sense. I want people on right-sized plans. The nice thing is you don't have to worry too much, because if you have minutes left over at the end of your billing cycle, they're going to roll over. And if you get to a point and you say, hey, I've got so many minutes here, can I pause my plan? All you got to do is ask. We'll make it happen for you, because I feel no need to bill somebody for a service that they've already got enough minutes that they don't know what to do with. So I just want to make sure we're doing things really, really customer focused, making it real personalized for folks. And I hope that we're able to continue doing that no matter how we scale. That's something that is very important to me. Something that I plan on continuing even as we grow.
Do you have statistics to show the average call length and things like that you can say, okay, well, if you usually go out 3 times a month, here's how many minutes you probably will need. Do you have any kind of data to back that stuff up?
I have a log that I track of each call, what the task was, how long it took, and the date. So if that person wants to have that information, I can provide it to them. I haven't had anybody that's asked for anything that specific. But when we sit and talk about what sort of size plan, oftentimes we do just kind of generally talk about, okay, this is about how often you call in, this is about how long the calls take. So yeah. And again, it's still ultimately their decision. I'm not going to push them into a subscription that they don't need. It's going to be up to them.
So with that, then how would people contact you, to talk about plans?
Mhm.
I know you said you usually you use WhatsApp for the service, but is that the best way to contact you, or through the website, or?
Yeah, any of the above. So we've got the website. There is a contact form there, www.visualizeaccess.com. Also, my email is Shawn, SHAWN, @visualizeaccess.com. And then my phone number, which is okay to text, is 517-630-1420. And I always ask people, you might want to jump into a service plan right away, but let's just take that 30 minutes first. I want people to get those 30 minutes in, because I don't want anybody to get tied to a subscription, get 30 minutes in, kick the tires and be like, this guy is horrible. And I do have one person who has said they love using me, but because of my availability, it makes it real difficult for them. So there are going to be those limitations. I mean, I'm still just one guy, but we're building something. It's growing slowly but surely. And hopefully by, even just in the next few months when we show up at the national conventions, hopefully we have even more progress to share with everybody. So.
Well, hey, if you get some of those same volunteers that you had with Magvi, that'll be great because
I got
I enjoyed working with some of them as well.
Yep, I got 4 of them that have found me, primarily because they're connected to that, New England College of Optometry, so I'm excited to bring them back on board. They're gonna be, some real strong folks to get us, kicked off with this pilot project that we have.
Shawn, we really appreciate you coming on today and telling us about your business. We wish you the best, and all the links will be down below in the show notes. But thanks again for coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate the time today. Michelle, thanks for asking me to be here. I'm looking forward to hopefully being out at the, NFB State, convention for Pennsylvania as well, now that you guys aren't gonna be in Erie. It was great talking with you, both of you, though. David, nice to meet you. And hopefully, we'll be hearing from some folks that are coming our way from the podcast. And what I'll do too is, if people are still listening, let's go ahead and give them a 50% discount on that trial. So instead of 30 minutes for $20, just mention that you heard on the White Canes Connect podcast. We'll give you that 30-minute trial for $10.
Thanks again to Shawn for joining us today and talking about his business, Visualize Access, with a bit of a different business model. And Michelle, I'm excited to meet him down at the convention in New Orleans in July.
It'll be his first time actually having an exhibit table in the exhibit hall. So, yeah, stop by, say hi, introduce yourself and get a bit more information. And thanks to Shawn, if you're listening to our podcast, get a discount on your trial of minutes for visual interpreting, and see what you think.
Yeah, that was a great thing that he did there by cutting that in half, just by calling in and giving him just say, hey, I heard you on White Canes Connect, and instead of $20, you'll pay 10. And that is a great benefit. So give him a try and see what you think. And if you do that, I would love to hear what you think about it. Please give us a call. 267-338-4495. You've got up to 3 minutes. Leave your name and your town. If you do leave a voicemail, again, 267-338-4495. And you can tell us about how the interpretation went or anything else you want us to know or ideas you may have for upcoming episodes. Again, 267-338-4495.
Or you can email us at whitecanesconnect@gmail.com and leave us an email and let us know what you think.
Michelle, it was great having you on today. Thanks for sitting in. I'm sure it won't be the last time that you sat in. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Take care.